Jane Eyre is an orphan who grows up under the care of her wealthy but unkind aunt, Mrs. Reed. Jane is treated harshly by both her aunt and her cousins, especially John Reed. The only person who shows her affection is a servant named Bessie, who comforts her with stories and songs. After Jane fights back against John's bullying, Mrs. Reed punishes her by locking her in the Red Room, where Jane's late uncle had died. Frightened by what she believes is her uncle's ghost, Jane faints. Later, the kind apothecary, Mr. Lloyd, recommends that she be sent away to school, and Mrs. Reed agrees. Jane is enrolled at Lowood School, where life is difficult. The headmaster, Mr. Brocklehurst, is cruel and hypocritical. He expects the students to live in poverty while his own family enjoys luxury. During her time at Lowood, Jane becomes close friends with Helen Burns, a gentle and patient girl who teaches Jane the value of forgiveness and endurance. Sadly, Helen dies of tuberculosis during a typhus epidemic that also exposes the poor conditions at the school. After public criticism, Mr. Brocklehurst loses control of the school, and conditions improve. Jane remains there for 8 years, spending 6 years as a student and 2 years as a teacher. Wanting a new life, Jane accepts a position as a governess at Thornfield Hall, where she teaches a young French girl named Adele. She is welcomed by the kind housekeeper, Mrs. Fairfax, the owner of Thornfield. Mr. Rochester is mysterious, intelligent, and emotionally complex. As Jane spends more time with him, they gradually fall in love. One night, Jane saves Rochester from a fire that he claims was started by a servant named Grace Poole. However, Jane suspects that he is hiding the truth. Later, Rochester appears to be interested in the beautiful Blanche Ingram, making Jane believe he plans to marry Blanche. Instead, Rochester unexpectedly proposes to Jane, and she happily accepts. During the wedding ceremony, everything changes when Mr. Mason interrupts and reveals that Rochester is already married. He explains that his sister, Bertha Mason, is Rochester's wife and is still alive. Rochester admits this is true, but explains that Bertha became mentally ill many years earlier. He has been keeping her hidden in the attic of Thornfield, under the care of Grace Poole. Jane realizes that she cannot marry Rochester while his wife is still living, so she leaves Thornfield despite her deep love for him. Jane wanders through the countryside without money or shelter until she is rescued by 3 siblings, Mary, Diana, and St. John Rivers. They welcome her into their home and treat her with kindness. St. John later finds Jane a teaching job in a village school. Soon afterward, Jane learns that her uncle, John Eyre, has died and left her an inheritance of £20,000. She also discovers that the Rivers siblings are her cousins, so she generously divides the inheritance equally among all 4 of them. St. John decides to become a missionary in India and asks Jane to accompany him as his wife. Although Jane agrees to help with his mission, she refuses to marry him because she does not love him. As she struggles with this decision, she suddenly feels as though she hears Rochester calling her name. Believing this to be a sign, Jane returns to Thornfield. When Jane arrives, she discovers that Thornfield Hall has been destroyed by a fire started by Bertha Mason, who died during the blaze. Rochester managed to save the servants, but was left blind and lost one hand. Jane finds him living quietly at Ferndean. Their love is renewed, and they finally marry. In the closing chapter, Jane says they have enjoyed 10 years of a happy and equal marriage. Rochester eventually regains partial sight in one eye and is able to see their first child after his birth.